Welcome back to Detroit Next. We are here in the Detroit is Different studio, the west side of Detroit. I'm Malachi Barrett.
Khary, Frazier.
It's been a minute since I've been here. You and Bryce have been holding the ship down while we've been recovering from the primary election.
It was a lot to recover from. It was many a debate forums and mayoral forums, and a lot in that primary that you were at day to day.
Yeah, we were on the hamster wheel a little bit there, but I got some time off and I'm back and I'm refreshed. And now we have our two candidates for mayor. We have all of our candidates for city council seats set as well. And today I think we want to talk a little bit about the differences, the kind of exploring some more of the choice that people have between Mary Sheffield and Solomon Kinloch in the mayor's seat. And we are going to talk with a great organizer here in Detroit about what they are doing, how that's kind of resonating with people in the city, and what are some of the big issues that voters are looking for, and really the disconnect between, what politicians are running on and what people are kind of looking for. Just some table setting. I was a little surprised by the outcome in that I didn't think Mary Sheffield was going to have such a big lead. She won 51% of the primary vote. She won the vast majority of voting precincts in the city. She could become Detroit's first woman mayor if she beats Solomon Kinloch Jr., who finished second with 17% of the vote, edging out Santil Jenkins, although she gave him quite a fight at the end there. He has positioned himself, the leader of Triumph's Church has positioned himself as a grassroots, working class champion. They know there's some ground to make up, but it seems like they're trying to occupy more of an outsider lane in this race. Mary Sheffield is also positioning herself as people's champion, as a grassroots progressive candidate who has a anti-poverty agenda. And they both have now scheduled town halls throughout the city through September and early October. So we're going to get to hear more from them. But I guess just like high level, like for you, what is like the main difference between these two candidates? Like, what do you see?
See, this is what's so unique, especially with what our guest today was talking so much about. It's the experience versus someone coming in without that political experience, but definitely with political relationships and community. That stands out huge to me. It was surprising to find out that that's not necessarily what's resonating from what we the people are getting in their polling of what people say. And the other key element, it's like an elephant in the room of, I think, all of American politics right now. People got a lot of fatigue. People got a lot of fatigue of what happened from the federal election going into today. In this election as well, it's going to be very prevalent, especially as we see Donald Trump's administration do some of the craziest things that you would ever think a person would do, let alone a United States sitting president. And that reverberates with a lot of the voters. So when I think about the differences, it's to experience what I think. When I think a lot of the people, what they're talking about in the difference, Mary Sheffield is more of a known name to a lot of people that work in community that are not connected to the church. Triumph has a huge footprint when we think of the faith-based community throughout the city of Detroit and really Metro Detroit. With that being said, the church and our community, as coincided as they are, like a lot of institutions, still need so much more love, and that connection is not as strong as it once was. These aren't the days of the Council of Baptist Pastor where basically an endorsement from them and support of them would be an immediate place on the ballot, which I believe she did get the endorsement of the Council of Baptist Pastors as I speak of that. Things have changed. This ain't the Reverend Sampson Detroit. This is a Detroit where a lot of people really want to see what will impact their lives and what will be changed. We're seeing a lot of people just like disconnecting from a lot of things, not just necessarily voting, but so many other institutions when it comes to community itself.
Since we were gone, Mayor Duggan endorsed Mary Sheffield for mayor. We're not sure if Mary will endorse Mayor Duggan as he runs for governor. That'll be interesting to look at. But what do you think the impact of that is? I mean, I've seen varying reactions. I mean, on the one hand, Sheffield had already been picking up a lot of support from the same people that put Duggan in office. I did a comparison of all of her donors and all of the people that donated to Duggan in the past for his mayoral campaigns. There's a lot of overlap. lot of powerful names on both of those lists. So some of that support was already kind of flowing her way, but like symbolically for, the incumbent mayor to basically say, this is who I'd like to succeed me, and this is who's best qualified. I could see that carrying a lot of weight. I've also seen some negative reactions to it from people who are very distrustful of, or very just, I guess, frustrated and disagree with the way that the tax abatement system has worked in Detroit and the way that we've funneled public money toward large developers to get things done. It really kind of fits into this narrative of downtown, an over focus on that versus the neighborhoods. And so I did see some people say, well, I'm not a Duggan supporter, and now that he's supporting Mary, I can't go with her either. So I don't know, maybe it's a double-edged sword there. Like, what is the reaction that you've seen?
Well, Detroiters for Tax Justice saw that immediately. A lot of that group said, can't support Mary. It's tough because Mary stood with so many issues with the people and a lot of the organizing when we think of the tax justice, but more so the right for renters to have
right
counsel.
Yep. Legal protection.
Legal protection.
She voted against some of those larger tax breaks as well, like for the District Detroit vote. She voted against the Illishes.
And I believe just Mayor Duggan also looms so much in this election as his tenure of mayor, even leading up to where none of the candidates really outspokenly really stepped forward and said from even the primary that like, no, I'm going to run Detroit differently than Duggan. And this is where it possibly could be a little bit of a decision to be made because mostly everyone said, I want to just upkeep and keep going the progress of what's happened with Detroit. Solomon Kinloch said certain things he would do differently, but nothing to the point where I think that it was just like audacious where you could say completely like, this is what I would do. This is what Duggan did. These are the differences. So, if you vote for me, this is the type of Detroit I want to see. And Mayor Duggan's administration has been something that a lot of the organizers and organizing communities feel as though has not been aligned with the city of Detroit and more so many of the neighborhoods. So a lot of that discussion and those points that Mayor Duggan often uplifts and says, no, I have been in the neighborhoods and we've done work in neighborhoods as well. It's just more difficult to get to the neighborhoods. It's just difficult. Mary having that support, I mean, it's like, you're not going to turn that down, especially all of the money that is being given.
Yeah.
It was kind of looking like that support would be given just by default. Like, I mean, it was lining up. I mean, as they say, the streets were talking that it's like, okay, this is her candidate.
I wasn't like that surprised, but for a while, Duggan had said that he wasn't going to endorse anybody. So I guess from that perspective, it's interesting that he jumped in so soon after the primary.
Well, with the lead that much too, it's to the point where it's like, come on now, if you were to jump in, I don't know, what would he have done if it were such a closer margin? I don't know. Where would his allegiances lie then? But this definitely means that so much more of that grassroots support is going to be needed for Kinloch to put up so much of a valiant effort in this. And even when you look at the donors, as you said, Mary across the board was even getting the smaller donations too. So it wasn't just a lot of the dark money and larger money, because a lot of that was present in the Sheffield campaign too. But a lot of the people giving the $20 here, $50 there, $10 there, she was getting a lot of small donations too when you broke down that report.
Yeah, go look on BridgeDetroit.com. Please and thank you, and see some of her reporting on that, because I would love to talk more about it, but I don't want to get too much in the nitty-gritty on campaign finance today. Maybe another episode would be great.
Yeah.
But a lot of that information has been posted online. For me, I think the main difference that I see really is Sheffield talking about her experience and her legislative record, and Kinloch saying basically that, literally this week he said that those make for good headlines but don't really go far enough. And I think the thing that I'm kind of waiting to hear, or we'll have the opportunity to dive deeper with the candidates on what their vision is, but what would be different. One example this week that came up, there was a report, we've done some reporting on our website as well, you can find that on BridgeDetroit.com, about the concept of a arena tax, a tax on tickets at sports games and concerts downtown as a way to raise revenue. It could raise up to $47 million, depending on how we structure it. And Sheffield has talked about that as a way to begin, reforming our taxes in the city. This would be a way to offset a property tax cut, save some people some money by charging folks who go to these, games and concerts a little bit more. Kinloch was opposed to that and said that basically it doesn't go far enough. It's kind of a drop in the bucket in terms of revenue, and he wants to see something different, but I'm not clear exactly like what that would be.
I think it's been brought up before. I remember when Angela Whitfield Calloway was talking about something like this before.
This is kind of an extension of the work that she was doing to get them to study it. Yeah.
And looking at what that would be and how far, quote unquote, it would go and what that would be, so much really needs to be made as an assessment of what are we looking at when the new mayor gets in office. Definitely any revenue generating programs or initiatives would be very helpful. I think that could be very prosperous for the city. But we're thinking like millions of dollars already for what's happening on the entertainment tax in the district that we've already had so many tax abatements for. It's almost scary when I look at the Downtown Development Authority and like what that is. Like that's not even, cutting apart those debts that are continuing.
Well, and a lot of people mentioned that back when the Wings were at the Joe Louis, we did have a tax on tickets and parking and concessions and some other things because the city owned Joe Louis Arena and leased it to the Ilitches. And when the new stadium, Little Caesars Arena, was built, that part of the deal was not included in it. So we used to actually collect a portion of that revenue for the city, and now we don't anymore. And so we're talking about maybe restoring it. But I feel like that's kind of an example of like some of the dynamics that we're talking about here, where it's a little bit more complicated because, a Duggan endorsement to some might signal that Sheffield is going to be very friendly to the downtown businesses. Yeah. But I don't think the Ilitches and the rest of the arena owners are going to really like the idea of, the city taxing their tickets.
Well, I can tell you this. It seems like every place where I buy a ticket online, they're taxing something. Yeah. Like, I mean, right. You see the ticket for like $25, but by the time you get to purchase it I don't even know what's going on with those fees, but it's a lot of fees with tickets. Mm-hmm. And not to mention just the swaps now and StubHubs and things like that. It's out of control. Another tax and what that could be and how that could be beneficial, I don't know. I mean, even the parking situations with what's going on downtown now. Mm-hmm. And I still believe that's a lot of gouging too. But this is just Khary Frazier, the resident, speaking on behalf of going for a downtown experience. Because, I mean, depending upon what you want to go to, it may make more sense to pay for the, like, what do they call that? The surge rate Uber to go to whatever you want to go to. And some of the ideas of what can be more revenue generating, I think could stick to what Mary was talking about when she was here. It would be sticking to when these developments are built, making sure Detroiters really are doing the jobs, making sure that that's delivered upon. Because the jobs and employment for Detroiters is going to be the most substantive thing that can be done. And she just point blank said it. The record, and Mayor Duggan has even spoke to this, that the record that Creo uplifts and everything, that a lot of these developments stand on, with hiring Detroiters, where I see so much construction happening across the city and actually in neighborhoods, because a lot of that's being done through DTE right now. And I'm not seeing people that look like Detroiters.
Yeah. Whitfield Calloway said that. Angela Whitfield Calloway, the council member, said that she visited a bunch of construction job sites to basically tally how many black people were working at these jobs.
Well,
she didn't see very many of them.
Well, you may see a black person holding a sign, possibly, at best. That's what I'm usually seeing. And this is frustrating. So that leads to some of that same frustrating, like, why am I checking in the first place? All of this money being given, all these considerations being given, and we can't get jobs. And the job cycle is usually saying, well, we can't hire the people because they're not trained. They're not educated. It's a big confusion circle. I know this much. Detroiters need to get hired if we're going to be a part of any more of these projects. So that stance right there, and even saying this shouldn't even be so provocative, but it seems like that's a provocative stance. Mm-hmm. Mary definitely said that she wants to be a part of that. I know Kinloch has spoke to that because the jobs initiatives and the training for those jobs and what happens with those training for those jobs, that's going to have to be really what's said. I think it's going to take like provocative leadership. It's going to be, look, these spaces, if business downtown is doing good, then the Detroit residents need to do good as well. And That's easier said than done. But, when you're running for this office, that's where you put the 2 and 2 together and figure it out.
Yeah, that was basically Kinloch's another part of his point on the arena tax as well. As he's saying, like, look, we need to negotiate deals better up front instead of coming back to the drawing table. And there's ways that these deals could be made that would maybe create more jobs for residents and the type of benefits that they want to see. But we are obviously, we have more time now and a little bit fewer candidates to cover. So we're going to narrow down a little bit more on what are the differences between these two and what are their visions and really what would change for people if they were to be elected. There's also some similarities I just want to point out between the two of them. Technically, we have two pastors that are running for mayor.
Very true.
Mary's ordained minister. I think she said she preached her first sermon at the age of 12 or 13, I think. They're both started their very public roles at a young age. Mary was the youngest city council member when she was elected at the age of 26. And Solomon Kinloch became the leader of Triumph's Church, the senior pastor there, when he was 24. So they were both put into pretty prominent roles at young ages. They both talk about partnering with the business community, partnering with philanthropy, and having those community organizations and neighborhood block clubs be partners in what they want to accomplish. Our guest in the back half of the show will talk a little bit more about what does co-governance actually look like and how do we get there. And they both have family connections in Detroit politics, we should say as well.
Very much so.
Solomon's
because
brother and
Jonathan
Mary's
Kinloch,
dad.
and definitely we know Horace Sheffield Jr., and even the legacy of Dabo, her grandfather, and that organization would exist. I think another thing as we frame what's happening, as I've uplifted so many times when talking here or Detroit is Different or public comment or just to my friends or in passing, we really don't necessarily know what's in store. It's said what's going to change, but we really don't necessarily know what's in store. So when I say what's in store, what we're going to be looking at for no more ARPA funding, which it was some legislation that passed this week that it was like, okay, I didn't know ARPA funding would be going to that we found out a little bit about. And not just ARPA funding, the federal government relationship that did exist in the Biden administration that had a great relationship with the Duggan administration. So many of these initiatives, so many of these plans, what's going to happen, really that lens, what are we looking at is the key discussion point before I can evaluate what takes place and what moves forward. So I think that really both candidates, it's hard to take so much of a bold action because you don't know what's under the hood.
Yeah. Well, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to dive a little bit more into this with somebody who's got an ear to the ground here in Detroit. All right, welcome back. Here with me is the Executive Director of We the People Michigan, Maria Ibarra. Fraye, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I love talking with people who are way more immersed in the activity of politics and the kind of nitty gritty of grassroots campaigns, because I think it's a good kind of vibe check to understand what is the difference between what campaigns are saying when they're out talking to people and what are you finding when you interact with folks. And I feel like that might just be a good place to start is tell us about the mission of your organization and how have you been interacting with voters in this really important election year that we have in Detroit.
Yeah, thank you. I actually wonder if I could share just a little bit about who I am, because I think that connects to
Please.
how it is that we got to this place. So
yeah,
I came to the U.S. when I was 9 years old as an undocumented immigrant. And I grew up in Detroit. And this was before anybody was talking about immigration, before anything was going on really with the awful raids and deportations. And when I was 19, I was invited to go to an immigrant rights training for undocumented youth. And it was the first time that I met other people who were undocumented. And it was the first time that I felt powerful. And I just remember having this light bulb moment of, this is what I'm supposed to be doing in the world. And there are people with names and faces and addresses who are responsible for what's going on in my community. And I've spent the last 15 years trying to recreate that sense of agency and power for other people So that's how we got to We the People Michigan. So we're a multiracial organization that's organizing real people, myself, like my parents, family members, who want to understand how it is that they change the conditions for their community. And they also know that nobody else is coming, that it's us. We got to do it. And as much as we see politicians who are making promises to our people, we've also know and understand that it's actually going to take regular, everyday people to be able to change the conditions for their communities. So we organize across different parts of the state. Our biggest base is in Southeast Michigan and Southwest Michigan. And then we also have folks in the northern Lower Peninsula and the middle of the Upper Peninsula, and hoping to expand to a few other parts of the state. But yeah, it's multiracial working class people figuring out how to make our communities better.
I think a lot of people, at least in like my personal life, like when I talk to folks who are just like regular people, you know, a lot of them feel powerless in this moment. I can't imagine how much more powerless, you know, how much less power someone who's undocumented probably feels in this moment. And we've been hearing a lot of concern from residents in the city about how do we protect our immigrant neighbors and, you know, kind of bracing for, you know, escalation of ICE activity. Their budget was, you know, monumentally scaled up in the latest federal budget.
Yeah.
You know, we are seeing deployment of National Guard resources in Chicago. So, you know, we will probably see some kind of increased activity here. All that is to say, I'm curious, like, what was your experience growing up undocumented here? And like, for people that, you know, the 9-year-old version of you who's here in 2025, you know, how different is that for them, and what resources are really available for them now that maybe weren't there when you were growing up?
Yeah, it's really fascinating because I think in many ways it was hard, but it wasn't as terrifying as it is right now. It was hard in the sense that nobody was talking about this. It was a family secret. I was told over and over by my parents, don't talk about this, don't tell other people that you're undocumented. And I remember being in high school and all my friends were getting their driver's licenses and figuring out what college they were going to and making plans to do all the things that you can do when you have status, like even buy cold medicine because you have an ID. And I couldn't do any of that. But at the same time, I wasn't worried that I was going to step outside and somebody without a badge with a face mask was going to take me away somewhere else, and my family would have no idea what happened to me. So the same level of rates of deportations weren't happening back then. So it's like, what is better? The not having the community, the people around you to support you, or what's happening right now where it's very dangerous, actually, for many undocumented people. And in Detroit, we have such a vast, diverse community. We do a lot of work with immigrant communities that are trying to figure out how it is that they get the resources they need for their families. And it's constantly this choice of, do you step outside your bubble and you organize and you fight to get what your people want? But that puts you at a certain level of risk because all of a sudden you're more known, you're recognized, you have a platform. And we are seeing actually the Trump administration is going after community leaders. They're going after, honestly, what I see as kind of a decapitation strategy of how do we focus on the key community leaders who are guiding the immigrant rights movement to make a statement, really, that like, we're going after you.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that at the city council table. There have been residents who have come down and said, we want our elected leaders to take a really firm stance on this and let the Trump administration know that, you know, Detroit's not going to get involved in immigration enforcement and they're not welcome here. And some of the response that I've got from public officials about that strategy is it's almost like, you know, if the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? I mean, it's a dumb analogy, but like people are worried about calling attention to Detroit and then you know, creating a backlash. It's the same situation with this issue of Trump sending the military into cities. You know, the mayor's administration and other folks have been hesitant to talk publicly about that because they don't want this to, you know, become a bigger issue, and then it's like the eye of Sauron turns on Detroit.
Yeah,
right. That's the way people talk about it. So what do you think the local response, should be on this issue? And what can people on the city council and people, who are in the mayor's seat or vying for the mayor's seat, like what should they be doing in this moment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. I think for us is that we are really clear about our community's values and our values, where we, regardless of who you are, whether or not you're an immigrant or not, you have the right to live and move and be at a place that you love without worrying about whether or not you're going to get pulled over and get deported, or are you going to try to buy medicine and you don't have an ID, or what's happening to many other Detroiters right now where you actually can't afford to live here anymore. And I think about every day the level of risk that everyday people take, and then what do we expect from elected officials to then be able to take that same level of risk and having stances and values that have our back.
Mm-hmm.
And we, the people, has chosen to engage in a few key fights that feel really instrumental, where we feel that this is actually an opportunity to be able to have a relationship, a partnership with hopefully city council members who have our back, who share our values, and who are willing to enter in what we call a co-governing relationship with, where we actually have decisions and make decisions collectively about what happens with our communities.
Yeah, I want to talk more about co-governance, and I want to talk more about the city council races you're involved in.
Yeah.
But I'm also curious, why not get involved in the mayor's race? There's been a number of kind of progressive grassroots organization, I guess if I could lump them into a bucket, that are not really weighing in on the mayoral race. And I'm curious your organization, why you guys decided to do that.
Maybe we were unique in that, or I don't know. A few key reasons. One is that I think there's lots of excitement for both candidates and recognize and see that. And we heard over and over from our bases, so we organized both Latino, Black communities. We were doing some organizing in Dearborn with Arab communities and trying to build pathways between Arab and Black communities. And we organized around immigration, housing, mental health, and some aspects of environmental justice. And we just kept hearing over and over from our base that they were actually not super excited about any candidate for the mayoral race.
Interesting.
And although there's merits to both, they just felt that the opportunity to actually have a candidate that represents our vision for what it looks like to have Detroit be a place where everyone can thrive would be better represented in the candidates in District 6 and 7.
Can you tell me, what are the things that they're not hearing from the mayoral candidates that would kind of line up with those things that they're seeking and make them feel like they have maybe more of a place?
Yeah, I think what the key issues that our base right now is fighting for is around access to mental health resources, particularly for Black communities, Black families, and housing resources for housing in a more comprehensive way. I think that we're looking for trying to build a base of people that are figuring out what does affordable housing look like in Detroit. But then the big one also immigration, where I think oftentimes it gets decided, or the narrative is that there's nothing that we could do on immigration at the local level. It's all federal, which is the federal immigration law is correct. But there are a lot of things that we could be doing at the local level that we just didn't really see many specificities around with the current candidates.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, I can't really describe to you what the candidates have said about immigration. I don't think it's really come up much.
No, not much. We actually had a mayoral forum for it was maybe about a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
Before the primary, and we invited all the candidates to come to it.
Development Corporation.
And from the two that made it, only one of them was there. So, Kinloch didn't show, which was really disappointing and hard. We're trying to better understand his relationship to our immigrant community, and to not have him be there, it was already okay, well.
Some people just feel like politics and government is something that happens to them, that they have no stake or involvement in. And I'm interested, this kind of came up during the budget here in Detroit. last year, there was some conversation around how do we create kind of a co-governance structure around the way the budget works, give people more of a say in the process, and even maybe give them a vote in how certain, maybe a pool of funding is like allocated. That idea, is in very early stages, and I'm not sure what to expect from that, in terms of like actually making it happen. But the concept of co-governance, tell me what should that look like here in Detroit? How do we achieve that? And what are some of the benefits there?
Yeah, I think we have a little bit taste of what that could look like. We have so the incumbent in District 6 that we've known for a long time, Gabriela Santiago Romero, who has been a partner of We the People Michigan for a long time. And there's a couple of instances when this whole issue of spending money from COVID funds and ShotSpotter was happening. She gave us incredible insight of what to do, how to put pressure on the other city council members, how to talk to community members about, the sound as this is explained to you as something that would be good for our communities. But when you actually break down the fact that it's wildly inaccurate, doesn't actually prevent in gunshots, like that's not a prevention mechanism, it's just detection, but even then could be inaccurate, was able to really work with us to be able to put enough pressure so that city council wouldn't spend money on something like this and instead divert it to what community wants. Another example was when we learned that, so the city of Detroit has a municipal ID that is for city of Detroit residents. And anybody who's a Detroit resident can access it. A big population that does access it is undocumented people because they can't get any other kind of ID. And she learned that the company that was providing those IDs had the opportunity to sell that data to ICE. And she was the whistleblower on that. And if it hadn't been for her, many other people could have continued to get the ID. And like now we know, we actually just had a few months ago, DHS do an audit for the Washington County folks on their county ID to try to get the records of who has that ID. It's only a matter of time if that had continued before they went to Detroit and get an even larger database of undocumented folks and potentially have those people be in danger. So those kinds of relationships and examples of what it looks like to be in a co-governance relationship where you can actually strategize together about what do we want, how do we get there, how do we help you negotiate? Can we push on particular city council members or stakeholders who can come to our way of thinking and be aligned with our values?
How much of that relies on city council members just being willing to listen to the community? Like, how do you make them listen to the community when maybe they don't want to? I mean, the ShotSpotter is an interesting example, maybe because advocates were successful in making sure that gunshot surveillance system wasn't paid for with federal ARPA dollars, but the city just extended that contract with general fund dollars instead. So, didn't use our pandemic relief money for that technology, but it still, was passed.
Yeah. I think it's a relationship and also a negotiation of how do we first of all, make sure that we have candidates that are willing who have our values, who come from our communities, first of all, who are people, who understand and represent our values, hold them. And then it's not just getting that person elected, but it's also then having their back afterwards and knowing that I think a lot of this is like negotiating, like what do you care about versus what do I care about? And as long as we're moving in the same direction and we have the same values, I think that's like the key question of how do we get elected to listen to the community's want. We're going through it right now with the state budget of how do we get elected to prioritize families versus corporations.
So what could the next mayor of Detroit do on the immigration issue to make people feel more protected here in Detroit?
Yeah. I think what you mentioned about like there is, kind of like feels like a double-edged sword where it's like if you have a city or government mayor who's very much resisting, they're going to be a target. But my take on it is that we're actually already our targets. and that I have a lot of things that I would love to see. For example, having a citywide non-solicitation ordinances, which are sort of already there, but to make it official and pronounced, meaning
What would that be? Yeah.
So that means that if you have any kind of interaction with government, with law enforcement, with healthcare, with education, that you're not being asked about your immigration status because it's not relevant. It's a whole different entity. So that would be the equivalent of you get pulled over and they're asking for your tax records. It's not. It's two different federal entities. It doesn't matter. I just saw that the Ingham County just allotted about $30,000 of their supplemental budget to an immigration clinic. What would it look like for the city to be able to do the same thing? I actually, during the first Trump administration, Washington County allocated $150,000 towards an immigration attorney that was specific for Washington County for residents that were going through this immigration crisis. There could also be more training for law enforcement and different kinds of foreign IDs. So in Michigan has a national treaty where you can drive with a foreign driver's license as long as you have that translated in English, but law enforcement doesn't know about it. So you get pulled over and you show your driver's license from Mexico, from Guatemala, from another country, and as long as you have that translated, it's a valid driver's license, but law enforcement doesn't know that. I would love to see, even though it's not the official practice, but it kind of already happens, you get pulled over, and oftentimes what happens is the police will call ICE under the guise of getting interpretation. They'll say, oh, let me get somebody who speaks Spanish. And then they call ICE. So a ban on that. And I think overall just a statement of not just immigration policies, but there's so many things that are hurting communities right now that are coming from the Trump administration. Like, we're against it. We reject it. Instead of what just happened with Mayor Duggan of saying that crime in Detroit went down because of Trump. Just a different world.
Detroit Next is a community collaboration between Detroit is Different and BridgeDetroit. We really couldn't do this without your support, and we want to keep it free for everybody too. That's really important for us. So if you like what we're doing, go to bridgedetroit.com/donate and help us keep this paywall free. You can subscribe and get our newsletters and stay up to date on all of our reporting. I do the City Council Notebook that comes out on Wednesday mornings. You can also go to BridgeDetroit's YouTube channel to get the video version of this podcast, I guess we're calling it,
yes.
As well as extended interviews with all of our guests and other features. You can find the audio version of this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and DetroitNext.podbean.com. And of course, go to DetroitIsDifferent.com, right, for all the stuff that you're working on.
Come to Detroit is Different. We're doing all types of things and just, staying up on different things, especially when it comes politically with Malachi. Public Comment to Mesa Bailey uplifts that as well. And it's going to be some culture that we're always bringing through Detroit is Different.
We are going to keep this election reporting going through November and, I don't know, possibly beyond. We'll have to see. So stick with us and keep supporting us. We really appreciate all the folks that have reached out and, like what we're doing. So we're going to keep at it. Peace.
Peace.
Detroit Next is a community-led project from Bridge Detroit and Detroit is Different, which means that we can't do this work without you. We need your support. If you have a question or a comment and want to participate in this process throughout the year, give us a call. We have a phone line set up at 313-284-6407. Leave us a message and we'll play it on the podcast. If you like what we're doing, head to bridgedetroit.com and subscribe to our newsletters. All of that content, again, is free, no paywalls for anybody. We're trying to make this as accessible as possible. Head to our YouTube channel to get full episodes and interviews along with extra content throughout the year. You can also find the audio version of this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and DetroitNext.podbean.com. We're going to be doing this all year long, so stay with us. Follow Bridge Detroit and Detroit is Different on your favorite social media platforms and take this ride with us. Thanks.